Hello and welcome to Newscentre. With me, Parikshit Luthra. Russia continues to fire missiles on Ukrainian regions despite warnings from the UN and NATO countries. Several areas are left without water and electricity. Ukraine announced that Germany has delivered the first of 4 Iris-T air defense systems to Ukraine, which will help the nation defend itself from Russian airstrikes. This after Ukrainian President Zelensky, while addressing G7 leaders in an emergency virtual meeting, asked the members to supply more air defense systems to deter Russian attacks. He also urged them for an international monitoring mission on the Belarusian border. The G7 leaders released a joint statement vowing to back Ukraine with humanitarian, military, legal support for as long as it takes. They have also expressed support on Ukraine's campaign to take back Russian annexed regions and have said that any use of chemical, biological or nuclear weapons by Russia will be met with severe consequences. Meanwhile, UN's nuclear watchdog has alerted the Ukraine nuclear plant, which is hounded by Russian troops, has lost all external power required for safety systems. So definitely a worrying situation there on the ground in Ukraine. Joining me now to take this forward is Oleksiy Goncharenko, member of the Ukrainian parliament, also on the show Stefan Korshak, Kyiv Post defense correspondent. He is also the former monitor of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, former diplomat. Ashok Sajjanhar also joining us here on the program. Stefan, if I may come to you to ask you about the situation on the ground. President Zelensky has asked for more military support from the G7. Give us a sense of the kind of attacks that we've seen in the last 24 hours and what's been the impact on civilian and military infrastructure.
Well, to take the second question first, the impact has been serious but limited. The Ukrainians have succeeded in returning to power to practically all locations that were hit. Repairs are going forward. And from what I've been able to observe and others, it seems like wartime life is going on as before. It was a bad wave of attacks, but now the people are going forward. In terms of what's needed, the short-term answer would be more air defense and also probably military aircraft, because you can't really close airspace with just air defense weapons. But beyond that, the tools to defeat the Russians, or at least force them out of the country. That seems to be a common opinion, that the only way to end this is to force the Russians to leave Ukraine using military force.
Right. Ambassador Sajjanhar, how do you see developments taking place? We believe that Ukrainians in many parts of the country are preparing for a nuclear strike as well. Even President Biden, while addressing reporters, said that they have a response in place in case President Putin uses nuclear weapons. How do you think this is now likely to pan out in the coming days?
Right, Parikshit, when you say that, President Biden did say that we would be staring at an Armageddon if the use of nuclear weapons was really translated into action by Mr. Putin. And Mr. Putin had also said that he meant what he said. It should not be taken as a bluff. So, of course, we are today, the world is standing today at a precipice. But the world has to be ready that if this, meaning, of course, hoping that it does not, the eventuality, it does not come to this. But of course, it has to be prepared for all anything that could happen, because we have seen the sort of desperation in the actions of Mr. Putin, because, he has taken these 4 regions. He has also gone through the legal processes domestically to get all of them. So I think these are all escalations. And after what has happened, the missile strikes that we have seen, about 75, 80 missiles being pounded on the cities of Ukraine. Of course, we were told that about 40 plus were the Ukrainian forces were able to stop them. But I think we have to be ready. The escalation is increasing. And what the first panelist said, that the only way out is to push back against Russia. The last point I'll make here is, till about a few weeks ago, it was thought that Russia would never lose because Ukraine could not win. But today we have seen that Ukraine has been able to push back. It has been able to retrieve significant chunks, swaths of territory from Russia, what they had taken. And Russia is also feeling itself cornered and back to the wall. Of course, they've got their new general who is, supposed to have burnished his credentials in Chechnya and in Syria. And we have seen what he has done. But that notwithstanding, I think if Ukraine is able to stand firm, get all the weaponry and the equipment that it has asked for, I think they definitely have a possibility of changing the tide of this conflict. Parikshit.
Right. Tell us, Stefan, how the Ukrainian forces are holding up on different fronts against Russia. What is going to be the strategy in the near term, and what kind of arms and ammunition is the country really asking for from the G7?
I go to the front from time to time, and I would say that morale is good everywhere that I've seen it. I have seen Ukrainian soldiers and talked to them. They are not afraid of the Russians. They feel that if they have the tools, they always will beat the Russians. I think that that's hyperbole a little bit, but they are quite confident. They increasingly feel that they are skilled in conducting larger combined arms operations, and they have a strategy that's led by their General Valery Zaluzhny, which in my view is primarily opportunistic. They look for places where the Russians are weak, where there is a lack of concentration of force that they can exploit, and then they take advantage of it. Where they might go next, the Ukrainians, therefore, I would say on the ground, is going to be to a great extent determined on what openings the Russians leave the Ukrainians. It's a huge front. It's nearly 2,000 kilometers long,
Right.
depending on how you count it. And there's really no way for either side to be strong everywhere. So it's a question of which side can concentrate force faster. In terms of weapons, once again, conventional weapons, tanks, artillery, ammunition, combat jets, the things that an army needs to win a conventional war, that's what Ukraine wants. That's what Ukraine's been asking for.
Okay. Stefan, I'd also like to focus on what may happen in winter, because this winter may be harsh, more difficult for European nations because of the energy crisis that we're looking at. And Ambassador Sajjanhar, I'm going to bring to your notice what Fatih Birol, the head of the IEA, said a short while back at the EU Ministerial Energy Council in Prague. He stressed on three issues: the need for full solidarity among EU countries this winter, why the next winter may be even harder, and rising competitive pressures on the EU's energy-intensive industries as well. So do you think this winter will really test the resolve of European nations in supporting Ukraine against Russia? And this is an opportunity that Russia would actually be looking for?
I should think so, Parikshit, because, I think that is why Mr. Putin has been trying to prolong and extend the conflict as much as possible, because he would have thought that, some sort of a fatigue would set in as far as Europe is concerned, as far as the United States is concerned. We have seen the sort of inflation, we have seen the sort of downturn in their economies. Recession is staring both Europe as well as the United States in the face, either later this month or later this year or next year. So I think this is what Mr. Putin would be banking on, that at least as far as the people are concerned, that they would get tired, because they would like to, in terms of principles, they would like to support Ukraine, but not at the expense of the sacrifices that they are being required to make and the downturn in their own living conditions. But that having been said, I think the Europeans have seen this coming for quite some time. And so they have had time to prepare themselves. And, I was having a look at some reports. In fact, I did a paper also very recently. And in that, I've seen that more than 89% of the tanks, of the European Union, they are already full with with gas, which they will be using for during this winter. And of course, they have, for the last several months, they've also been importing LNG from the United States. And also, whether it is Scotland, whether it is UK, Norway, Qatar, I think gas has started coming, is coming from there also to different parts of the country. Of course, they will have to prioritize whether it is households that should continue to get as far as the heating is concerned, and the industries and the factories that they would reduce supplies to them for some time, for the time being. I think that is something, that is an exercise, that is a calculation that is, in my view, still going on. But yes, I think it is going to be difficult, but I do not foresee that it is going to be a sort of a make or break issue. I was very recently in North Europe and in the United Kingdom, and the sort of resolve that I was able to see, of course, the winter has not set in as yet in full force, but the resolve that I was able to see in all these places, whether it was Scandinavian countries or Poland or elsewhere, I think the people do continue to be strong, but then we'll have to wait and see as to how, when the economic downturn takes place, how are the people going to respond? Because that is really going to determine what the government's, what steps the governments take going forward. Parikshit.
That's important because even the former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, when he was in India, he did say that he has a feeling that this war may continue till the end of 2023. My final question to Stefan. Stefan, in the view of Ukrainians, on defense correspondents like yours, experts, how can this war really come to an end? No one really knows right now. There is a feeling that Russians are getting worn out. Their forces are worn out. They're using some very expensive weapons. They cannot sustain this war effort. In your view, what is needed to really bring this war to an end?
Oh, that's an excellent question, and I don't think that anybody knows. There is, however, a common opinion in Ukraine, I think, and that is that the war for the Ukrainians is, existential. They have no choice. They'll tell you immediately. They must fight. They are defending their country. If they surrender to Russia, police state, arrests, concentration camps, all of that is possible. Literally, it's been seeing a lot of that stuff. And so they really have no option like surrender territory or make a deal. They must take back their country and bring the Russian forces to the stop. They see no other option. And how long it will take, that depends on outside forces and outside factors. One of them is, and the Ukrainians know this as well probably as any nation, the internal politics in Russia. Mr. Putin is perhaps not as firm in on his throne as he used to be, but how long he can hold, nobody knows. I don't think he knows that as well, but that is a factor. How long the Europe and NATO states are willing to sustain Ukraine. There is a feeling in Ukraine that probably it will continue, but it might not. They understand that this is their war to fight and that they might have to do it without outside forces. So given those outside factors, nobody can say when it's going to end. But however long it takes, that's what the Ukrainians are ready to do, in my view.
All right. So the Ukrainians are ready to dig in for as long as it takes. Thank you very much for joining us, Ambassador Sajjanhar, Stefan Korshak of the Kyiv Post. We're going to take a short break here, and our focus on Ukraine-Russia war will continue in the coming days. But for the moment, we'll shift our focus. After the break, we will get you a discussion on the reporting framework, the crypto asset reporting framework, which has been released by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. A special conversation when we are back.